Hello, this is Paola Harrison. We're at the Roswell UFO Museum to do this live streaming. It's kind of a fun thing because we're testing this kind of live field research for the first time here in Roswell. And I think it's appropriate because Roswell is the Mecca, I call it the Mecca of ufology, or the place that everybody comes because this is the most famous case of all. And then, for me, it's appropriate because I'm a teacher, so we're in a library. And in this library is every single UFO book ever printed. And we're going to see it because I will walk through this library, and then I will walk through the museum. So what will happen is that people will have like a lesson or the history of UFOs. And I know that it's not just UFOs that we're talking here. It's talking about visitations, it's talking about the paranormal, it'll be talking about crop circles, it'll be talking about contact. It's talking about so many different areas that people are interested in. This is not old hat. This is history, and in order to study a subject, if you really want to know what happened, you have to study all of it, every single piece of it. We got a special guest today, though, and for the people that are tuning in, they are going to have the honor of meeting Sergeant Clifford Stone. Clifford Stone is someone I've known for years. I was instrumental in printing his book, Eyes Only. He is a military man, Army, who did crash retrievals all over the world. And Cliff is the real deal. He speaks from things that he has done, he has been involved in. People might know him from Stephen Greer's film. Stephen Greer's film, Sirius has, and Unacknowledged now, has Clifford's testimony. He was part of the Disclosure Project. Clifford gets really emotional because basically he did crash retrieval, which meant he did many operations where he was involved with live as well as dead aliens. And I'm going to talk about a famous manual he had that the government had in order to give emergency help to 57 different races. So when we get him in here in person, this live stream is going to be historical because you'll hear it from a man that actually lived it. Why do we have Cliff? Well, he's part of my conference in Laughlin. I run the Laughlin Conference, StarWorks USA, November 10th through 12th, and it's called Time for Truth. So I'm going to have George Nuri interviewing Clifford on the 11th of November of this year, and then you're going to see him here. So you can see him here first. Right now, behind me is a representation of a painting of the actual Roswell crash. I mean, it is said that there were bodies, but one was alive and was taken to either Area 51 or Wright Pat, but we don't have the exact information about that. I want to give credit to Stanton Friedman, to most of all to Tom Carey and Don Schmidt, who actually do Roswell and study Roswell and have gotten the witnesses for Roswell, written books on Roswell. Don Schmidt will be my master of ceremonies in Laughlin. So behind me, you're seeing a representation of this famous case, and then we're going to just slowly walk through the library into the museum part. I want to say something, though. The reason why I really care that people know the real deal is because I was involved with Colonel Philip Corso at the 50th anniversary when I came here to Roswell, and everybody was here. Everybody from John Mack to Whitley Strieber, and everybody was here. This is the 70th anniversary, and I have written a book about Colonel Corso, my memories of him, because we brought him to Italy twice. What Colonel Corso told me in here also is an analysis of the alien body, because he saw it for Belvoir, and different photographic depictions of him with us in Europe and what he told us. This book is now at the museum. It's part of history, and you can get this on Amazon.com. It is word for word based on audio and videotapes. So that's why I really wanted to talk about Colonel Philip Corso and The Day After Roswell, which was the book that came out. at the 50th anniversary. So let's just take a walk. Let's just take a walk through the museum. Let's. You want to follow me this way? You can see all the libraries they have. They get hundreds and thousands of people and families coming through here all the time, and people want to come and do research. They not only have this, which are the books, in the back they have files you can go through. You see all the files? Just take a little peek here through the files. For people that are doing research, they have all the files. They have artistic depictions of different cases. If you want to know everything about ufology, and it should be a study, it's not entertainment, I mean, it's darn serious, and you want to know what happened and why we're being visited, then one of the things you want to do is come here and spend some time. So let's go this way. It is a family kind of atmosphere, so we're going to have this kind of depiction. And then in here we have the gift shop where all the different alien artifacts are. So they have a gift shop. And then let's go to see the real story. Well, people have asked me, I mean, even Neil and Paola have asked me, how come they made a museum? And I said, because of these people. These are the people who were involved in the real Roswell crash. This is Walter Hott, and I did interview Walter when he was alive. He was the information officer who got the first communication about the crash. He got the first telegram there. A UFO was crashed in Roswell. And he was, on the orders of Colonel Blanchard, he issued a press release which went out on the newspapers, and then they had to bring it back because it shouldn't have happened. This is what he looked like when he was young. This is him older. And then I've interviewed him. He's no longer with us. This is a mortician. This is Glenn Dennis. Here's when he was young, and this is when he's older. And I asked Glenn Dennis, I said, you know, what happened? And he said, they asked me for 4 children's caskets. He said, so I thought, what accident happened? Because there's 4 children that died. And then he went out to where the tents were and talked to a nurse about what had happened. They weren't children, as you can imagine. So he actually told me this. So he is part of history, you know, because he was a mortician at the time when they had this crash. Max Littell enlisted Walter Hott and Glenn Dennis to form an international museum. If this was Italy, this is the only place they'd ever want to go. It's like the Mecca, the tourist attraction of the world. They all want to come here. So, I mean, the outside world would love to come here because this is the Mecca and the beginning of all everything. The board of directors here, and Stanton Friedman, who has done so much work on Roswell, we really owe him so much. He is incredible. As far as getting the MJ-12 documents, talking to Jesse Marcel Sr., who is the one that you'll see now, the posed with the weather balloon, because Jesse Marcel Sr. actually saw the pieces. This is the man with whom I started working, Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Dr. J. Allen Hynek was Project Blue Book, then he went on his own for Center for UFO Studies, and he's the man I work with. This man will be in Laughlin. He is Don Schmidt, and Don Schmidt is dedicated his whole life with Tom Carey to researching Roswell, getting the witnesses before they died. And Don Schmidt will be with us in Laughlin because he's going to talk about the latest on Roswell. So you can see this really cool wall that they've all written their names on. And then they've had all movie stars come here during the festival, Keir Dullea was in 2001 Space Odyssey. So when they have the festival, I want to highlight, this is my good friend. He definitely will be in Laughlin with us. And Paul Davids did the movie Roswell. This is the alien that was in the film Roswell, and you're going to see a depiction of it there. He did it from the point of view of Jesse Marcel Jr., who was the man that was asked to lie and say it was a weather balloon. So the movie Roswell is still available. You can see it. And these people are trying to recapture history that really happened. So we'll go this way. This is the map of all the people to visit. And this is how I started working with Dr. Hoenick. He used to make me put pins in a map right here. So these are all the people that visit. 1940s. Okay, the UFO era started with Kenneth Arnold sighting to Mount Rainier. And I am the only journalist that interviewed Kenneth Arnold's daughter. So in one of my books, I talked to Kim Arnold about the trouble that her father had after he bothered to talk about his sighting. He was a pilot, and these were Chevron-type craft that came over Mount Rainier, and they took him seriously because he was a credible witness. So her interview about what the family had to go through in one of my books, I think it's Stargate to a New Reality. Here's Kenneth Arnold. This is a modern age because 1947 is when Kenneth Arnold had the sighting, and 1947 is where Roswell happened. But if we turn around, one of the reasons why whoever is visiting the planet is interested is because this is where the 509th Bomb Squadron was housed, and they're the ones that threw the bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. See the thing for the 509th Bomb Squadron? This is what it looked like then. This is the Roswell field. This is what it looked like then. And what they were doing was getting ready to start the nuclear age. These are depictions of the atomic bomb. When was this done? July 16th, 1945. So you have all the people that were housed here, because Truman is getting ready to do this, and these are the important people of those days. They're getting ready to. Truman said to end the war. It was the fast way to end the war. So what they wanted to do, and when this crash happened, it happened July 4th. July 4th for us is Independence Day. So when you see the movies Independence Day, it's easy for you to remember because July 4th, 1947 is when this happened. And of course we've got here a depiction of the teletype that came in, so Walter Hutt would get the teletype right. They made a mistake and they printed it. And so the newspaper should be the original newspaper. Then they had to recant it because after they printed it in the original newspaper, they had to recant that it was a weather balloon. They couldn't say what it really was. So here are the people involved. And here it is. Here's the original newspaper. People should know this. I mean, it isn't just a commercial situation. They should know that this is history. They had a problem. This is a problem. Because when you print it, like he did, and then you have to take it back, and you have to manufacture a situation where you got a piece of plywood with aluminum foil, and then you call this what fell. This is what happens with whistleblowers. They carry this heavy load. This is Jesse Marcel Sr. He knew. He went to the debris field. He knew it wasn't a weather balloon, and he saw the pieces. He took them home and showed his 9-year-old son and his wife. Now, I knew Jesse Marcel. Jesse Marcel, the 9-year-old boy. I brought him to Europe. He was in my apartment in Rome. We talked. I said, "What did your dad do?" He said he brought home these pieces in these boxes. He laid them out on the kitchen table, and he said there was like 2 or 3 I-beams. We thought there was one I-beam. Jesse Marcel told me the I-beam, it had with the hieroglyphics. I don't know if we have a sample of that. They were, we over there. This man brought home the pieces. He's not going to bring home pieces of a weather balloon. He's going to bring the real pieces. And so Stanton spoke to him, and that's what opened up this whole Roswell thing. The other thing is he said there were pieces that were like aluminum foil, like this. And Jesse Marcel told me this himself, that he could scrunch them up and they go back to the original form. This is the I-beam that has the kind of symbols on it. I thought there was one. Jesse told me that there were several, that they put them on the ground, in the kitchen. His mother and him saw him. His father was really good. He put all the pieces back, and he brought them in to where he was supposed to be. He was an intelligence officer. But his father had a lot of trouble because he had to lie. So these years of lying, he felt much better at the end when he actually could admit the truth, and even his kids, his family, could talk about it. Okay, so this is actually a museum, the entertainment part. There's smoke that comes out of this. People go in there to see films. There's a dark room there, they're watching films, but this is the entertainment part. And I don't know what time the smoke's coming out of here. This is where everybody has their pictures taken. Everybody that knows me knows that I have a bias against this stuff, because all the professors and the scientists won't get involved because they think that we're just playing around and, we love the little gray alien. And I'm going to go on record saying, no, look, these are extraterrestrial biological entities, like little clones. I was told by Colonel Corus that the real people that they were worried about was the creators who were like us. So a lot of the real people are like us. The real ETs, the extraterrestrials, the visitors, what Clifford calls the visitors, they're like us. Here's this kind of, this is for kids and to pose and so forth. But anyway, so the cover-up. We have the people now that are showing weather balloons and talking about weather balloons. I'm going to take 5 minutes now to talk about the 1945 case, because we just came off location. The witness to the 1945 case was a 9-year-old boy with his little friend, a 6-year-old boy. Jose Padilla was 9. Remy Baca was 6. Who watched a crash. They watched the craft come in. They watched it go into the mesquite, burn the area, and they saw a piece fall off, and they saw 3 beings sashaying or floating back and forth. This is a case that I have researched for 5 years, and that Neil and Sol have come with me on location. They have the film footage of the crash site, which has the mark of the UFO still there after 72 years. But what you need to know is that the Army came into the Padilla family and said, we have to cut your gate in the cattle guard because we can't take it out, because it is a weather balloon. So they knew they had collected weather balloons, and they knew weather balloons look like this stuff. And why would you have to cut the cattle guard in the gate to take this out? It was a 30-foot long metal avocado-shaped craft. They had to take a week to put it on a flatbed truck, and they had to find a way of getting it out of the Padilla property. So the idea of everything being a weather balloon is ridiculous, even if it's top secret weather balloon or whatever, because it's not solid. We're not dealing with a solid thing. And so the idea that they had to go back after you have pieces, you have the debris, and call it a weather balloon, for anybody that's intelligent knows that's not what it is. 1945, for me, was the first time. Then there's the case of Aztec, Corona, other crashes. And why are they all in the New Mexico area? Because of the atomic bomb that was seen over there. I mean, if these people were on vacation, these visitors from other planets, they would have gone to Miami Beach. They wouldn't be in the New Mexico area right around the Trinity site. So to study ufology and why they're here, and they're not here just to visit us, they're here to control, to watch, to see what nuclear energy does to us, how long we enter a nuclear age. They're here also because when we explode something like an H-bomb or an A-bomb, atomic bomb, we actually go into their dimension, and they are also affected by this pollution. We're still doing it. If we ever get a bomb out of North Korea, and then we lob a bomb back to them, it's game over. So we're still in the nuclear age. We are still playing with this. Somebody is interested whether we're going to make it or break it. So this is why it's so important to study UFO history. These are the people that were involved with the cover-up. There's some of them are, and Nathan Twining is a general, and we got people, not only the military involved, but, scientists and so forth. You can't really tell the people, because what are you going to tell them? You don't even know where they're coming from. You can't tell them. So When I came for the 50th anniversary, the Air Force was really upset, so they put out a communique saying that the bodies were crash test dummies that looked like this, the bodies that were recovered. They had to say something, otherwise, because bodies were recovered, and there was autopsies, and they were being flown out by some of these pilots. So they had to say something. So we all laughed, because how can you have a crash? The worst part about it is the crash test dummies weren't made until 1952. And this happened in 47. So people have to use their brains. If they, you got a crash test dummy from 52, you're using that as an excuse, but you think the general public is stupid. This is very important for me. This is Werner von Braun, the godfather of the rocket age. We're going to have Carol Rosin with us in Laughlin. She worked with Werner von Braun. He is a German scientist who helped us with the Apollo programs, with the early, he's a rocket scientist, and the Germans knew very well that there was not only crash craft, but there was also bodies. A lot of the German bodies that were recovered were Nordic. They were people. In fact, I don't remember any gray extraterrestrial entities with the German stuff. Okay, so that's History Channel some years ago. We're looking for pieces because there are people who believe if you have actual piece, then you can prove the UFOs are real. Let me go on record saying you don't need the piece. You need the witnesses. I mean, Padre Balducci once said to me, a whole religion is based on witnesses, the apostles in Christ. You didn't need artifacts. Why are you asking people to give you pieces when the witnesses are enough? But then, the History Channel financed this dig hoping to get some pieces, and the Roswell debris field is extensive. It extends for almost 3 miles. It's really hard because the debris was on the Roswell Ranch and went for a long, expanse. It's very important that we look at this because the CIA wanted to release the UFOs, right? And they didn't know how to do it, so they're going to do it through the movies. They approached Ward Kimball, Walt Disney, maker of Jiminy Cricket, and they said, can you do a movie that will tell people the truth? So what happened was that the first movie that came out that was real was The Day the Earth Stood Still. So we have the report from The Day the Earth Stood Still. Here's all the artifacts from this movie. I teach a course for the Exopolitics Institute called Hollywood and Disclosure, and I talk about this film because what happens in this film is Michael Rennie, who's the real ET, comes out and he says, look, you got to stop using nuclear, otherwise you're not going to be talked to us because we're going to quarantine you. And what they do, they shoot him. That's the first thing, and they shoot him, and of course he gets well. But he brings with him this robot named Gort. And Michael comes out of the ship, Gort comes out of the ship. It's in Washington, D.C. You see the Washington Monument. And that was the intelligence community's way of gearing the general public, of trying to see how they reacted to this. Now, a lot of people, and there's some scenes from it, this film was remade with New Reeves some years later. New Reeves doesn't even bother with the people. He comes off the ship just like Michael Rennie does, and all he does is start picking up fauna and flowers and animals because he doesn't care about the humans already. He wants to save things from the planet. And of course, we try to kill New Reeves, and New Reeves is an alien, and it doesn't happen. So The Day the Earth Stood Still they made it twice. The first time to test the general public's reaction. Of course, it's like shoot first, ask questions later. And the second time with New Reeves, where the being says, you guys are past the point of no return. So we go this way, and it's like this is the whole wall that talks about all different aspects of ufology, which I call a cosmic minestrone. It's got everything in it, all vegetables. But what Alan did, Alan tried to classify Alan Hynek, J. Alan Hynek, my friend, the man with whom I worked, tried to classify close encounters of the first kind, second kind, and third kind. You get the third kind. First kind is the sighting. The second kind is when it lands, like the Zatlani Zamora, that you can go over and see the on the ground the indentations. You can take the dirt, you can analyze it for radiation. That's the second kind. Third kind, close encounters of the third kind, is where you actually have contact with the being. So now there's the fourth kind where they take you and you go for a ride and you come back. So these are like, for instance, the most used, I'm going to make a comment about this, photos are the Billy Meyer case, which is not photoshopped because Photoshop happened in 1992 and Billy Meyer's 1970s, 70s and 80s. So they got the best pictures. That is a Billy Meyer Switzerland photo, and his photos are being used for everything. Yeah, let's look at what happens with the smoke, because it's coming out now. Even though this is not the explanation of every single piece of contact, it is the fun part. It is the part that families can come through here. Around July 4th, they have the Roswell Festival, and they have a lot of speakers, and they have Stanton come back, Stanton Friedman, and so forth, and Tom Carey and John Schmidt, and so forth. Okay, so we're looking at different examinations of the different parts of UFOs. So you can see they've got, this is a Lottie Zamora case, actually. This is Lottie, no, this isn't Lottie Zamora. We'll have to see if we can find that. These are different close encounters. I see the two policemen, so I thought that was him. I'll see if I can find it. But this is important for me, because this is where I started working. This is the Center for UFO Studies. This is Dr. J. Alan Hynek. I walked in his offices. There's Alan. This is Evanston, Illinois. When I walked into his offices, I began working with him because he asked for an Italian translator, and I would accompany him and drive him to meet people and so forth. So today we have MUFON, Mutual UFO Network with Jan Harzen, and they collect data. You have a sighting, you call MUFON. Okay, so they know how many sightings. In those days you had Center for UFO Studies, and you had APRO, Aerial Phenomenon Research Organization. You had a lot of different people. In this case, I don't know if you can recognize it. This is the Travis Walton case. This is Travis Walton, who was picked up near Snowflake, Arizona. He was gone for 5 days. He was put back by the beings, and he actually saw the little ones plus Nordics. He is convinced that when he was put back in a government hangar. I mean, everybody knows Travis Walton from Fire in the Sky, the film, even though they're making a new film now. And there is a documentary by Jen Stein that's incredible on Travis. This is the close encounters. The second kind I had mentioned is physical traces. I'm looking for Lottie Zamora because it's easier. Anyway, they're looking when something lands and it makes a mark like this. And we saw one in the 1945 one now. You know, you have something concrete you can analyze. So the physical traces were great. I was okay with this stuff. I wasn't okay with the contact stuff because I couldn't put it in my database. And then there's the radar visuals. Okay, radar visuals, we have a lot of those there in Stephen Greer's movie, Unacknowledged. So you have all of these radar people that are talking about their solid returns. So let's talk about looking at unacknowledged. People should actually buy it, rent it, or whatever, because it's got all of this stuff in it. The radar, all the things that happened, the Maelstrom Air Force case, Maelstrom shutdown of the 10, nuclear, the missiles with the nuclear warheads. That's in that film too. And it's radar. I mean, it's provable that these craft are on radar, so we have solid radar returns. And the documents that Clifford Stone's going to give you has solid radar returns in them too. What he's had to do, which is really unbelievable, is take the paperwork that the CIA, the government, Project Blue Book has hidden to prove his case is real, or to prove that UFOs do exist. I'm hoping to God we're past that. That's ridiculous. I mean, in Italy, we have an actual UFO section in the Air Force website. The British have released the files. All the countries of the world know this is real. Why are we going backwards? I mean, what we have to ask is, why are they here? These cases, like the McMinnville case right here, these are old photos that were taken with old cameras. Were they around back then? Yes. In fact, they've been around forever. It's just the kind of photographs we're taking now. So let's go to the next. So really quickly, you could go through the photographic evidence, because photos are also, proof of the. This one here is in Calgary, Alberta. So what you have is all over the world. This is Calgary. Right next to it is France. This is Rouen in France. Denville, Edwards Air Force Base. And so you have. This is a phenomenon that is not American. It's not an American phenomenon. It's all over the world. It's like, okay. The Palenque astronaut's very famous. It's a South American. It's a South American depiction of the astronaut that everybody knows is sitting there, and here it is in another form, so you can see it. And they think that he's sitting in a rocket. It comes from the tomb in South America. It's 400, 600 before. Okay. It's 400 to 600. It's 400 to 600 before Christ. So, I mean, this is the ancient alien stuff, the people that are interested in ancient aliens. So, if you get something like this, and you get depictions and petroglyphs in ancient places, and especially in Egypt, you know that this happened way before Roswell in 1945. And as a teacher, I should think you'd want to start back then and see about the visitations. Okay, let's go over here. And they've got a whole set on Area 51 here. There's an aerial view. Area 51 was set up in 1951. It's where top secret work goes on, including the recreation of alien vehicles, the things that Stephen Greer calls RVs, RVs, alien reproductive, and this is the top secret part of Area 51. Okay, the idea that the crop circles are all part of this. This is the crop circle phenomenon is part of the minestrone, and the fact that England has these crop circle representations, very intricate representations, and this is part of the mystery. There are people that just do this, like Colin Andrews, God bless him. Colin Andrews was a crop circle researcher that did so much work on this, and yet has shifted into consciousness. I know we're going to have a conversation on consciousness later on. But his initial work was on crop circles like this, He was in England. He was also contacted. He talks about it when he was a little boy. He was taken out of his bedroom, which was really amazing because the people that are working on this all have some kind of contact. This is Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar worked in Area 51. He says that these are the craft he saw. He has documents that shows that he has worked there. Here's Bob Lazar. But our own, unfortunately, our own researchers have given him so much trouble and questioned his credibility. And yet, I have been over near Area 51. I have the same poster, and I talked to the people who know him, and they said, of course he was telling the truth. He would sit there with all of his friends and watch these craft come up. He knew when they were going to be released. Were they alien or were they our? Was it our stuff or their stuff? He said it was our stuff. So it was very interesting because it showed that we don't throw the craft the craft in the garbage. What we do is we have to do something with it, which is back in the end. That's the Palenque, and these are different representations by artists. This is Mac Brazel, this is Beans. Roswell was a rancher. He was the rancher where the debris fell from. Okay, so then we went out into space, and here's our space age. This is where we're at. Kennedy decided to start, well, actually, it was part of the space race because the Russians put Sputnik up there, so we have to be first, and it's like a space race, but I think in his heart, Kennedy really wanted to put a man on the moon and really wanted to know what was out there. Here's all the films, and here's all the films made, and there's Paul David's film. And Paul David is always with us in Laughlin, and there's his film Roswell. This is a depiction of Jesse Marcel Jr. having to show a weather balloon when he really picked up the real stuff. Paul David's is here. This is Paul David's. No, this is from the movie. There's a picture of Paul. I was hoping, because Paul is the cameraman in one of the scenes of the movie. This is from the Roswell movie. He actually donated this scene from the Roswell movie. And he has a cameo as a cameraman. I don't see a picture of him, but he did a lot because he made it so real. We finally had a movie that was like a documentary that made it so real. And he donated this name, all this to the museum. But Paul Davis makes all kinds of movies in Hollywood. I mean, he did Jesus in India, he did Life After Death. But when he did this, the story of Jesse Marcel Jr. and his son coming back to a reunion, having to go through what he really went through, and it made it real. We got to understand it. I really love that Paul is with us, Paul Davis is with us, because somehow he got hooked. Oh, because of a sighting in Hollywood. He had a sighting in Hollywood. His kids saw a UFO, and that's why he made that movie. So it's so cool that he is with us, because he talks about how crazy his life was after that sighting, and he's a Hollywood director. So we'll go back in here. Are we going to go back in here now? Smells good in here. What do you have, eucalyptus? It smells good. I don't know what you got. These are the people that work here in the museum. Great people, and they see thousands come through all the time, right? And I know you have to categorize everything and catalog everything, and it's a good thing we have it. Okay, so I think what we could do is come over here and sit down for a while, and I want to show some of the titles of the books. I mean, the people that are interested in this have some of these. And you know, it includes everything. The mind control connection, which is the remote viewing. It has everything. The whole UFO field includes remote viewing, paranormal, crop circles, regression, You do hypnosis, in so many different areas of study. The only thing that I wish is that people would take it seriously enough to get together and do some kind of think tank and try to figure this out. Because it's a puzzle, and some of us just have a piece of it. We don't have all of it. And it would be nice if we could sit down and discuss it in a group, so that we could, because I can't do propsicles, I can't do a lot of the, I do the witness testimony, I do the word for word witness testimony, and I means I have to travel all over the world trying to find the people. And Colonel Corso actually let me see why the secret was secret. I didn't understand why the secret was secret until he talked about back engineering having huge envelopes of money and going to major industries to recreate what he had in 1960. We got to remember one thing about Corso, that he was Army, and there's Army, Air Force, and Navy, and the first crash in 1945 for sure was Army Air Force, so they were together. In 1947, they were still together, Army Air Force, and then they broke off. So Corso comes out in 1960, but I'm sure that the Air Force also had stuff way before 1960 that was in the general public. When you have a crash, and we had several during the atomic bomb testing in those areas, and when you have a crash, what you're going to have is a lot of artifacts plus bodies and so forth. And you can't imagine throwing them in the trash. I mean, people are not going to get rid of them. They're going to try to figure out how the craft works. And in my book, Corso talks about the being and the craft being one, and that the fact that the being would wear a headband, had a headband with a stone in the front, and he had suction cups on his hands. He had 4 fingers. And it blew me away to watch Unacknowledged, Stephen Berg's film, because Unacknowledged has Richard Doty saying the very same thing, that the being had 4 fingers and suction cups and wore a helmet. So if you have a craft, then you can't make it fly unless you have the being, unless you figure out how it's going to fly, because I think the problem was not having the craft or back engineering the craft, but how do you make it fly? So the propulsion system was the main thing that the United States government was interested in. So dealing with the nuts and bolts of it, and actually Clifford is nuts and bolts. He will talk about documents proving this. Some people want pieces proving this. I've gone way past that, so I'm going to talk about what I'm doing right now. I was looking at contact in the 1950s, and contact, a giant rock with Van Tassel, George Adamski in California, and with Howard Menger in New Jersey. They were people with long blonde hair coming from Venus. They would come and with the warning of how we were living and to change the economic structure of the planet, going from a war economy into a space economy. They were suggesting that was the choice that we had in the 50s. If we could go to a space economy like Star Trek, we could make money off it, and we would meet them. They said, if you go to a war economy, you're going to have to invent the wars. And so I'm interested in that contact part because I'm interested in why they're coming. I mean, I'm interested in why we have 57 different races. Of course, we're playing around with one here, the Greys, because that's the one that everybody identifies with in our field. But they were not Greys in the 50s. They were people, men and women, that would come off ships with special messages. In the case of Howard Menger in New Jersey, High Bridge, New Jersey, he has photos, he has movies. There's a woman coming off the ship. She has a gadget on her belt where she can come off the ship, disappear, and appear back on the ship. And Howard had relationships with them that the government knew about because he had FBI agents with them. So I was interested why they're not coming back. And then I realized that where they're going now is in Latin America. And so I began talking to Sisto Paz Wells and Enrique Villanueva and Ricardo Gonzalez. I began to interview them. They speak Spanish. Enrique speaks English, thank God, but all the Spanish contactees, I had to get an interpreter, and they're telling me they're meeting people. They're meeting people. People are coming off ships. So whoever was visiting the planet, the people
have decided that the only interest of this country is in the propulsion system. So they're not coming here. Why would they bother? If nobody cares about them, and like in the day the year stood still, shoot them first and then ask questions later, this is not very welcome for them. I noticed in the plans that the Charles Hall case is mentioned. Yeah, I did the Charles Hall case. It's called Millennial Hospitality. I think there's 5 books. Where Charles Hall was a weatherman at the Area 51 Indian Springs facility, and Charles talked to me for 2 years about this, and I extensively, I even brought him to the Indian Springs facility to recount the story, to tell it again, about the fact that on the Indian Springs facility of Area 51 in 1965, that was during the Vietnam War, we had guests. He thinks they're from Arcturus, but we had guests. We had tall whites, what they call tall white aliens, with their kids. There were 300 of them. They were given apartments that were inside, like the facility. It was almost, he said, hidden in the mountain. The mothership had a big hangar which was hidden in the mountain. He used to go in, and that he talked about his involvement because they never told him what he was going to see, and his first involvement with the tall whites at Area 53, I think it's near Bone Lake, Indian Springs facility, was he saw a little girl stuck in the sagebrush. He goes over and looks at her, and she looks up at him, very, very white face with almond-shaped eyes, and he can tell right away that she's not human, and so he makes a little path for her. He doesn't touch her. He just says, "Where's your mother?" But he backs up so that she can come out, and he sees what he calls the teacher, the woman with the scouts, calls them the scouts. Now, these beings have been there for a long time. They lived to be 700 years old, but us, even Howard Mancher, when he met with the Venusians, they said, "How come you people die so quick?" Well, because one of the reasons that was given is our diet, the fact that most of them are vegetarian. I mean, all of them, even not only the Howard Manger Venusians, but the cases I've done in Italy, the Eugenio Siracusa case, the Maurizio Cavallo case, the beings said that they ate fruits and vegetables. In Howard Manger's case, I have actual photographs of the fruits and vegetables they gave Howard to examine, and I've got the labs he sent them to. So have they been trying to help us? Yeah. One of the things they said in the last 30 pages of the amazing book Howard Manger wrote called From Outer Space to You, there's 30 pages of how to keep your blood alkaline. They said basically acid causes cancer and all the diseases we have. Well, meat is acid. And not only that, but I mean, they've been trying to give us messages. We're so stuck on the extraterrestrial biological envy, we don't look at the people that have come here and said, "We are like you, we live longer, why don't you guys get a clue?" So the thing that Charles Hall told me about the tall whites were that it was a way station that the government wanted technology for letting them be there, and that they would leave only with CIA guards to go walking through Las Vegas. So I kept thinking as a researcher, my God, if you come to this planet and all you see is Vegas and you think this is Earth. But it was in 1965 and Las Vegas looked very different. He said the people were very much like us. The women dressed, he went to a dress shop and told them where to go. The kids were very much like us. The only thing is they live longer and they're very thin. Hair on the people was platinum blonde, but you could see through it. The Charles Hall case is important because he's a military man, and I do a lot of work with military people. He works at Kirkland Air Force Base. He has top secret clearance. At that time, he was a military man, a weatherman, and he also said something very interesting because I pay attention to everything. He said that there were rockets going off in 1965 out of Area 51. We're looking down at Kennedy Space Center, waiting to go to the moon, and there's rockets going off at Area 51. So I think we don't have the whole story. I think, it's not that I read, it's that I met all these people, and I have 5 books of testimonies, and I'm trying to piece together a puzzle. However, since you can't do the work I do and run around and talk to all these people, the original military people and so forth, I suggest that that people read Howard Mengers from Outer Space to You, Adamski's Flying Saucers Have Landed, that they read all the witness testimony. Clifford Stone's book is Eyes Only, and he talks about the 12 crash retrievals he did, and that's the only way you get this information. Going back to South America, I've gone to grad school now on the ufology question, and I got enough nuts and bolts, enough proof. I've done it all. I know the people I worked with, Alan Hynek, who's the best of the best. What I'd like to have happen now is look at why we have the visitations in Latin America. So I'm spending a lot of time with those people, and I will have Sister Boswell's in Laughlin. Laughlin is an incredible venue because it's an international venue. He will come to Laughlin and talk about his contacts in the Chilca Desert with Oxel from Ganymede and from the people from Apu. They're physical people that walk off ships, but what Sisto does, and Ricardo and Enrique and Luis Fernando Mostacio, who lives in Bolivia, is they meditate and they fast and they camp out and they go to these deserts and they prepare themselves with an energetic preparation so that whoever's up there knows that the intention is to meet, and not just for the propulsion system, and then they have these contacts, which is absolutely amazing. So I'm interested in that. I'm very interested in that. For people that have read Ricardo's book, People from Apu, and my last book on All the Above and Beyond that just came out, you will know, and I won't go into detail about that in Shasta with Ricardo Gonzalez, I had physical contact with a 10-foot tall being, long blonde hair, named Antarel, physically standing there next to the tree. When you have that, you don't need to go back to third grade. I don't need to go back to picking up pieces and doing all the documents and everything. I know it's real, and I know that this particular race is trying to reach out to mankind to say that, look, you guys either grow up, you extend your consciousness into the universe, you be good to one another, you try to become one so we can have somebody to talk to. And that is their message. So basically the message, and I've been on several expeditions with Ricardo in Argentina and in Chile, in the Atacama Desert. They want us to become one race. They want us to become one race, stop fighting, realize it's a no-win situation. I mean, for people that saw the movie War Games, so the computers played chess and it was game over. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if we get a bomb from North Korea and we send a bomb their way and it escalates to bombing each other, game is over. So what we're doing is we're looking at the world the way it is, how far we've come, and I'm interested in the consciousness, and I know Portal to Ascension is, and I herald them for that. Because, you know, human potential, when you do look at the human being, and if the human being can graduate into graduate school and learn that they are one with the universe, that they just happen to be born a particular nationality and you know, sexual, you know, male, female, that was just, you know, what happened. That in the end, all that lives on the planet, plants, animals and so forth are one. So, and when the oneness comes through and you look at things as consciousness, then when you're out in the night sky with a Stephen Greer doing CE5, and by the way, he just doesn't go out there and say, hello, come on down. He does half an hour of the puja ceremony in Sanskrit. He's reciting Sanskrit. And then just like Ricardo, who does all the mantras, it's a preparation for contact, which, you know, that takes almost an hour. In the case of Sister Boswell's, it's almost a week of camping out in the Chilca Desert. That kind of contact shows them that we have good intention, that basically we want to have a dialogue. We don't want them to save us, but basically we want them to know that we not only welcome other cultures, but we would like to learn from them. Because they wouldn't be able to come here if they were fighting those petty wars and fighting among themselves. I'm going to switch right over to one of the people that I admire that passed on, and that's Dr. Edgar Mitchell. He's a good friend. I went to his funeral. And really, really was upset because slowly but surely we're losing all of our, heroes, what I call heroes. And when I interviewed him, I said to him, Dr. Mitchell, do you think that we're ready for contact, and for disclosure? And he said, I don't think so. He said, when I was out in space, what happened was I didn't see any borders. I saw the earth round with no borders. And he said, who would they come to talk to? Different races. Who would they come to talk to? The Chinese, because there's more of them. Would they go to talk to the Russians? Would they go to talk to the Americans who want to rule the planet? I mean, who would these people talk to as representative of planet Earth? So he brought it down. He brought it concrete down. He said, unless we become one human race and call ourselves human, then they can come down and say, hello, human race, and not look at individual borders and individual countries and so forth. So this is an astronaut, the sixth man to walk on the moon, Apollo 14, who's telling me this. And yet, he did so much. I mean, I was at the Washington Press Club when he asked that the media, and media was there from all over the world, release the Roswell files. He said, look, Roswell happened. Actually, Edgar Mitchell was born in Roswell. Clifford Stone lives in Roswell. Edgar Mitchell was born here. He was born in Roswell, New Mexico, and he wants the files to be open, because if there is a public and formal acknowledgement, people will start taking this seriously. And I wanted to herald Edgar Mitchell and talk about him. John Mack also, miss him like crazy. John Mack came to my apartment in Rome. He had told me that, he had studied this phenomenon, and he said, look, we need to change our world view to accommodate it, which means change your mind about how the world and the cosmos is made, because this stuff is real, and you have to kind of, merge it with your thinking. He told me that he felt that in 1994 that the DNA harvesting had ended and that people were being directly downloaded. In other words, you could be sitting outside and you get these ideas or these theories or whatever, like Einstein, or you could be having a dream and you get directly downloaded. You're not taken, you're not, anything. He said, people are being directly downloaded, and we have the most amazing researcher, Grant Cameron, who spent like a couple of years looking at musicians who said they were downloaded by ET races. And he did intricate research on this. So they don't have to take you. I mean, why would they? I mean, it's a lot of trouble. And then you're traumatized. There's ways that they could do that. John Lennon is an example of that. You can go on the internet and see the video. John Lennon standing on top of a penthouse saying, yeah, the UFO came close. In John Lennon's case, it even left him a little artifact that he gave to Uri Geller. And John Lennon, of course, was for the oneness of the human race. He was for imagine all the people. If you listen to the song Imagine, imagine there's no heaven, imagine there's, that we live under one, under love, that we are mostly the same and not different. And then people like the Moody Blues, people like so many. He named a whole list of musicians that had either had sightings or were using their music to communicate. It's a vibration to communicate. So these are researchers that have gone from nuts and bolts, because then you see somebody like Colin Andrews who did the nuts and bolts of crop circles, and he goes to a book called The Edge of Reality, which is an amazing book for people to read. And he sees that the answer is consciousness. And then you see people like Grant Cameron, whose UFO has to come, disclosure from the President of the United States. Even his tag for his email was UFO president, UFO research, presidential researcher. He did that for many, many years, and he's into consciousness research now, because he realizes what we consider paranormal is all connected. It's connected. He studied, when you hear a Grant Cameron presentation, I know he's done it for Portal Ascension. The thing is that he goes from the ESP thing to the paranormal, what we call the paranormal, the connections, the dimensionality, the portals, the things that we can't explain. He goes from that. They're very hard to prove, but you get witness testimony, you get research that's being done, a lot of secret research, especially with portals. And so he's gone from, the president should just disclose, which I think is never going to happen. Why would they? I mean, they've got all those toys, all those reproduction vehicles, they've got all the technology. Why would they explain that years and years and years of lies have gone on every level? Why would they do that? I think that that's not going to come. I think disclosure happens every day. I think disclosure happens when you have contact, or when you read something and can identify with it. When you have a sighting, I think disclosure happens on a personal level. If you want to go to a document level, when Clifford shows up, he'll talk about the documents and that are official, that prove disclosure. I love the witness testimony the best because I want to know what happened. I mean, I want to know exactly how they felt, where they were, how their life changed. Because I think one of the reasons why people don't want to know about this is that you cannot have contact, or you cannot know that it's real without it changing your entire existence. It changes your life. And I know from family members who have told me, look, I don't want my life changed. I want it the exact same way it's always been. What does this have to do with me? I want it the way it is. Don't scare me into thinking there's something else and I have to accommodate my world view. I have to change my mind. I recently wrote something about changing your mind. Certainly I've had to change mine. I started nuts and bolts. I mean, I started with putting pins in a map. I started with, going around with Alan Hynek to try to see whether it was a close encounter, first, second, and third kind. I started doing that. And then I end up in the Chilca Desert, not in the Chilca, the Atacama Desert in Chile, sitting with a group of people, meditating and reciting mantras for 2 hours, and then all at once these ships come over your head. There are no cities, there are no airports. The sky is totally clear, and if you take a laser and you flash, then they flash back. I've lived through that with Stephen Greer, who's amazing, and then Ricardo Gonzalez. It isn't easy sitting out in the Chilca Desert in Chile at nearly 11,000 feet of altitude, but it is a way of actually going to the source, of looking at, here I am, what do you guys, can you relate to us that will help us change a very dangerous timeline to destruction? If it keeps going the way it's going, we're just repeating history over and over and over again. So I would hope that in creating what I'm creating in Laughlin, that I would inspire people. I mean, a lot of conferences are nuts and bolts and individual cases and so forth.
That we had these sightings, but they wasn't all that significant. Well, guess what? In December of 2016 and January of 2017, the CIA released documents within the CIA General Records file. Now, there's over 1 million documents in that file, and they're not cataloged by any specific groups, period. These files are records that they went through under the CREST program and reviewed them, and they decided to declassify them. Now, once they were declassified, they were sent to the National Archives.
Okay, because we have another library where we keep all of the stuff,
and
the National Archives. And I will add one thing to people ought to know, that you spend a lot of time downloading documents because you know where to find them, and you know that this is the actual physical proof, this is the actual documented proof of what you're saying. Even though you have the experiences, he's done the retrievals, and you got very emotional at the Washington Press Club about the letting go of the one being, and you were reprimanded for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you let him go, and you said you'd do it again.
But that's why you try not to talk about personal experiences, because you relive them.
You relive
While
them.
you're talking,
It happens
yeah,
again. You can see it living color.
Yeah, I mean, it's living color, 3D. It's like you're not here. I mean, all of a sudden you're in a different period of time, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Barney and Betty Hill,
Yeah.
which was the first known UFO abduction. They were the first ones to come out 5 years after the event took place. The event took place in 1961. They started to talk about it in 1965.
It was traumatic.
It had a very dramatic effect upon them.
Right.
And the psychologists that hypnotized them in different locations, and they were telling the same story. And the one thing I want to point out here, because I think it's very significant that everyone overlooks, Betty Hill she was scared just like Barney. And she was thinking, people aren't going to believe this, people aren't going to believe this. And one of the ETs that was trying to make her understand, you're going to be released here shortly. So don't be alarmed. Don't think that, that anything bad's going to happen. You were trying to reassure her. And she's saying, but no one's going to believe this. No one's going to believe this ever happened.
Yeah.
And she saw this book, very strange book.
Yeah, there was a book there, and she wanted to take it.
And she said, I want to take that book.
Right.
That way I can prove
that I was here.
That I was here, and this really did happen. And the ET that was trying to go ahead and calm her down says, you can have the book. When you leave, you can take it with you. Now, the entity that seemed to be in charge came up and said, no, she can't have the book. When they leave here, they cannot have any recollection that this incident ever occurred.
But she did have a star map, and she did see certain stars that weren't invented.
Under hypnosis, she went ahead and drew a map that clearly pointed out that the visitors came from a location approximately 37.5 light years from planet Earth, known as Theta Reticulum 1 and 2.
Yes.
And when she drew that map, no one, and this is very important, because of the people who are the debunkers came out later on. But first, let's get what really happened. 65, she draws the map. 69, Marjorie Fish, I believe her name was.
Marjorie Fish.
She went ahead and did all these various options.
Calculations on
and voila, she came up with the map that Betty Hill drew. It fit perfectly.
Yeah.
So that came out, and all the, God forgive me for what I'm about to say, all the idiots that want to go ahead and want to be that UFOs don't exist, there's nothing to them, they're crazy.
But I think the reason why, I don't know, do you agree, is they can't handle it?
We can't handle it.
They can't handle it.
Well, they can't handle it. I mean, there's even, I can show you an Army document that's a intelligence document that says that they could have a UFO land in the backyard of the bunker, and they could see it, and they could see the little guys getting out and walking around. The next day they would get out and say that was nothing more than swamp gas, and there were pieces of the swamp gas breaking off from the larger piece that looked like people, but that's all it was. There's nothing to it. And because, they are already set in their own innovation of themselves, their inner sanctum, their security blanket.
The security blanket.
They go ahead and hit up on this because they feel secure, because they are the highest form of intelligence among the species known as the human race. And if there's something out there that is got a greater degree of intelligence that did not originate on this planet, then they feel threatened.
Yeah, because it can't handle it.
Well,
and not only that, but in your case, it really affected your family in your life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it does change your life. It isn't easy.
My kids could not understand. I was supposed to be a clerk.
Yeah, right.
And I went on a lot of TDY.
What's TDY?
TDY is temporary duty, which means I had to be volunteering for it.
Yeah.
When it took me 6 months to get my wife and kids there in Vietnam, or there in...
Your wife is Vietnamese.
Yeah, but to get them in Germany with me.
Yeah.
And when I got them to Germany with me, I got them there on a Friday, and what happens, I'm told that on Monday I'm going out on TDY
Temporary duty.
temporary duty situation,
Okay.
and they couldn't tell me how long it was going to be. I said, wait a minute, I just got my family here. You know, they don't know.
What do I tell them? What do I tell them? Yeah.
And that wasn't their problem.
Well.
So the whole situation is, here it was. That Monday, I had to go, and fortunately, I had some good soldiers living in the housing area where I live that helped take care of the family. And I had some people. I'll go ahead and say this much. The Inspector General of the Department of the Army flew in from Washington, was in charge of what was going on there. And I'll say it right up front, I wasn't always a good soldier, you understand what I'm saying? I went ahead, I spoke up for what I felt. No one's going to tell me that you have to believe this way, you have to do that. I would not go ahead and breach security, but at the same time, no one's going to live my mind rent free.
Yeah.
And that right there is a term you're going to hear me say all the time. Don't let anyone live in your mind rent free. And you know,
control your life.
Well, that's it.
As much as you can.
This situation, you know, I mean, I've seen service members who took their own life because all of a sudden they're confronted with something that all their lives they were taught doesn't exist.
Right.
The same, and you know, people hate it when I bring up God, but I have to do this. The same God that created us created them.
Absolutely, and it's logical. I think it's logic. Why would he just create human
Yeah,
beings
and if you
here?
don't believe in God, there's one thing you have to stop to think of. You know, even they will tell you that which you call God exists. We cannot tell you which religion is true and correct. I'm Catholic, and I'm going to die a Catholic.
Right, but
But I'm not going to try to force feed other people to be Catholic because I'm Catholic.
I understand, and what people have to understand is that we are more similar than different in all of the religions. They are more similar than different, and it shouldn't be the religion that separates the human being because they're all created by one.
And the one thing that is very sad, I can prove this scientifically also because there's scientific documents on it, is that the universe didn't just happen, and we know this scientifically. That from the time of the Big Bang all the way up to present, little things at just the right time had to happen for intelligent life to appear anywhere in the universe. So to say, oh no, it just all happened.
But you know that the Vatican through Monsignor Balducci, who's a very close friend of mine, said, of course, he said there's a hierarchy. God created beings that are on different levels of consciousness. Some are more evolved, and the evolved ones can come here. We can't go anywhere. We're stuck here because we're still playing the same old games. We can't go out into outer space and meet them unless we absolutely grow up in our consciousness.
That's it, and they are also, even to this day, trying to get a better understanding of us.
Yeah.
And the way they do that is they choose people worldwide who they want to interact with at a very young age.
Like you.
Yes, and go follow them all the way throughout their life, learning from them. You can't just go and land on the White House lawn and say, take me to your leader, because you're going to get the politics of that nation.
Right, and yeah, why would they land here? They can land in China, or they can land in Russia, and they could land anywhere
well,
they
it's
want to.
happened. I mean, you know the school where the children were saying
Yeah,
that they
that's
were
in
saying?
Africa. Yeah,
I'll tell you right up front what was happening there. They were picking children.
Yes, but they
And
would
I can
follow.
prove this now. That would go ahead, that they were going to follow throughout their lives.
Yeah.
To learn about those various cultures.
To
and
learn
stuff.
about them, yes. It's like anthropology. It's logical. I see it as logical. People, because sometimes they see it through the filter of religion, think it's bad or good. Are they bad or good? Are they here to take your soul? Are they here to kill you? Are they here to do this? Because we think like that. We have that thinking. Are you bad or good? And if they came here and saw what we were doing right now, they'd come to the conclusion we were all bad. I mean, if they watch some of them.
They're very concerned what we're doing right now. I'll tell you right now, and you know me well, Paula, you know me for many years. I don't get active about, you know, political things and all that good stuff. I mean, I vote because I have a mouth, and as long as God can let me hold a pen in my hand, I'm going to let politicians know when I'm dissatisfied with some of the things they do. But as far as whether it's a Republican or Democrat that wins, That's immaterial to me.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever's in charge, and I feel they're doing something wrong, they're going to hear from me.
Mm-hmm.
This year, this presidential election, I can show you on the document.
I know where you're going.
They became very concerned
I'm sure they
about this. I'm going to tell you right now. They saw us, and I think they may even still be on that little kick, if I can call it that, of being very concerned about we are closer today after this last election to a thermonuclear exchange than ever before.
I realize that, Cliff, and I'm so glad you're sitting next to me because I think that people need to understand that this is no game. This is not a game. It's not entertainment. Ufology is not entertainment. It is not a game. It is an interchange with cultures that are much more evolved that are trying to warn us. Don't go down that road. We've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't go down that road again. Don't go down it.
But you know what? It's almost to where it's going to happen again because it happened before. We had our missiles and our silos.
So you think we're going to have like a Cuban Missile Crisis thing
I don't
happen?
think it's going to be like that. It's going to be something that very few military people talk about.
And is the general public going to know?
Eventually. And, you know, we had our missiles and our silos ready to launch. They already had
That's
their
right.
targets.
That's a mouse.
We had our bombers
ready to go.
and they'd all be airborne within 15 minutes after they got the signal. They had designated targets. It made no difference if they came back home or not. There would be no home for them to come back to. But we had all this planned. Both the opposition, they had it, whether it be Red China, or whether it could be
Russia,
the Soviet Union, the former Soviet states, as we call them. But the situation is, each of those countries had situations where their missiles started to launch.
It started to launch by themselves.
We had it happen in the U.S. We had it
That's
happen
scary.
in the former Soviet states. We had it happen in Red China.
Yeah, the codes went off by themselves. In other words, the codes nobody did it.
And no one
did it by
and
itself.
no one could stop it.
But nobody could stop it. I know.
And just seconds before the launch, in the sites where these were taking place,
they stopped.
they stopped. Now, at that time, there was major concern. And a lot of people think, you know, well, some of the military is talking about that. I know a good friend of mine, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He even wrote a book about it. People were saying, no, he's lying. No, he's not lying. I'm going to tell you right now. There are more documents than what he had initially when he came out that clearly indicate these things.
This happened. Yeah, and actually, they can shut us down. They can stop us from killing each other. But don't you think they're getting tired of it? Don't you think that it keeps happening over and over and we don't learn?
You know,
I mean, don't you think they someday they say enough of this and we're going to go home?
No, they're not going to do that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because it's not all the human race.
No, it's not us.
It's the mad minimum.
Yeah.
It's the people who are full of greed, people who want all the power. But you know, they see people who strive. They see the good in all of
They
humanity.
do see the good ones too.
And that's why they hold on.
That's why they give us a chance.
Well, yeah, and over and over.
Over and over again.
And
I know.
the situation is, they see the good in humanity. It's worth saving.
Yeah.
And until we get, and I use the term spiritual, till we become more spiritually inclined in our thoughts and our deeds.
Or understand our higher consciousness. Yeah.
Well, until that happens, we're a planet in quarantine. They're not going to let us go. Do we have the knowledge to go out there? Yeah,
We
do.
probably do.
And you heard me, I'm going to say it again because we had a talk and you heard me say this. People ask, well, what about colonies on the moon? What about colonies on Mars? And I said, you know what? The whole situation is, if there are colonies on Mars and there's colonies on the moon, and I believe there's someone on the moon, I believe there's someone on Mars. And we have caves on Mars that we know about, that the only way we can explain them is that they were artificially made. They didn't naturally occur, which indicates that there was some type of intelligence. But if we have people from this planet that are there, we're there by invitation. And it's not any government that put those people there. And I'll have a lot of people within the UFO community, because they're making money off of it, say, oh, no, he's just trying to destroy what we're trying to say. No, I'm not.
But they have no proof, and this is the problem, is that for me, research is not an opinion. Research, and we've been doing that, we've been doing it now. We did a whole field research, because I only do field research, as you know. I got to go to the places and talk to the people and so forth. You can't just have an opinion about something without any kind of background or having gone there or having talked to the people. It's detective work.
I hate this. I don't have my glasses. I'm often forgotten.
Yeah, but I can read it for you if you want me to.
Oh, I'm going to read it because there's a shot point I want to make here.
Okay.
This right here this was released December 27th, 2016.
Okay.
The actual publication of the open source document was April the 18th, 1977.
Yeah.
And people, oh wow, I wonder what this is all about.
Yeah.
It came, 77 came, went, nothing happened, and we forgot. But every year we're talking, this is the year we're going to get disclosure. Well, on the week of April 18, 1977, U.S. News and World Report had a little paragraph that read like this. Before the year is out, the government, perhaps the president, is expected to make what are described as unsettling disclosures about UFOs, unidentified flying objects. Such revelations based on information from the CIA, because the CIA has control of all of this, a small nucleus there, and when there's a problem that comes up with UFOs, they meet in what's called the White House Situation Room, bottom line, and of course the NSC, which is the National Security Council, is the ones that keep all this under wraps. And the director of the CIA is actively involved in that. And even right now, well, I won't say he's involved right now because I don't think they trust the current head of the CIA. But anyhow, could be a reversal of official policy that to the past has downgraded UFO instances.
Okay,
and
so it was a possible disclosure.
Well, this right here was declassified in part, and the sanitized copy was approved for public release in 2013. It would not be until December 27th, 2016 that the CIA saw fit to go ahead and release it publicly. But this is the page from the CIA files. Now, everyone says, okay, well, this is public knowledge, so what? Here it is. Well, I'll tell you what the problem is with that, and what bothers me, is that at least one page of that, what they have in their file, and this is 2017, this is April the 27th, 2017, one page at least is still classified. This right here proves
Pages
it.
denied, and you don't know what's on that page.
And,
Could you put this on your Facebook for everybody?
oh, I'm going to be I got a lot of stuff.
Because we're almost finished with the transmission, aren't we? We have 5 minutes? Okay,
But
because...
I'm trying to get all this, but with this coming up,
Oh, no, you have to take care of yourself.
and, but no, right now I have about 30 documents, and some of those documents are 30, 40 pages, so I'm going to let you have some documents I want you to take with you.
Okay, but we need to let a lot of people
Yeah,
say
everyone needs to see this. Everyone needs to know what's going on.
What do you usually do with Facebook? I noticed that
I go ahead and I have to do it page by page, make it like,
Yes.
a photograph, then I have to put them up there page by page.
By page, and therefore people all over the world get to see him.
Yes.
It's not just us here in America, but he has a following on Facebook. It's absolutely astronomical. Because when I put that he was in the hospital, all these people from all over the planet started writing about, they're happy you were feeling better and so forth. So there are people all over the world. Facebook, social media helps with disclosure. There is disclosure if you want to read it. I mean, you go to social media, so you can do this.
And it's so important. Like what I'm hitting up on right now, and it's key, is I cannot stress 1952 enough.
Yeah.
Because in 1952, the CIA was working very hard to keep the National Security Council from becoming officially involved. With that being said, what people need to know is that until just January of this year, it wasn't publicly known. Mm-hmm. But we did, in fact, the IAC, which is the Intelligence Advisory Committee, did brief the National Security Council, and for whatever reason, the documentation dealing with UFOs and their interaction with the National Security Council, those documents have never been released.
Okay.
They are still classified. But the whole situation is dead record, which is why the Robinson panel came into play. To block the NSA from becoming officially involved, in which they would have to go ahead, and I can show you a draft of what they'd have had to release, of what was called the National Security Council Intelligence Directive. That would have gotten the entire intelligence community involved in UFOs, and what would have happened? We wouldn't be sitting here talking about
We just
are we
know.
going to have disclosure. It
We
would
would
be
just-
common knowledge
Common
that we
knowledge.
are not alone in the universe, and they are here among us now.
All right. Well, we are so happy to have you. I'm glad you came, and we have very little time left. But if you have, I heard from Portal to Ascension that people can see this not just live the way it is today, but they can also see it by requesting it. And I'm hoping to put some of it on my website.
Well,
And we
is it
could.
going to be on the internet?
It's live now.
I'll give you up, but is it going to be on the internet later on?
It could.
Yeah, it is on the internet now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on the internet now.
Well, it's got, because you know how close I am with my dog, and my dog's going to want to see it.
Okay, well, the truth is, yeah, you can get it on the internet because when it's live like it is, people are at work at this hour. People aren't home yet. They're talking to their friends. Oh, you want to see this? Because, you know, the fact that Cliff is here is historical, and the museum is historical. So that you get a chance to do it again, to recommend it to your friends and to watch it again. And so at a time when you come home from work and you have the time to do it. It was a 2 hour podcast or whatever. And the thing is that people that really want to know the real thing, that want to know the real research and the real people should tune in.
One thing I'd like to point out right here also is that my time goes short. This is the second time that I came very close to death with this here in a little more than a year. And I got a whole lot I got to get out there. And because these are documents that will be thrown out because my family's not really involved in it. And these are documents that belong to the world, and these are documents that people need to see. They are the truth as we know it, and they clearly point directly to the fact we are not alone in the universe. That some form of intelligence of various kinds are visiting us now, and will be doing so in the future. Until that great moment, in sometime in our future, and I hope it's sooner as opposed to later, that we have that open contact. And it won't be bad, it will be something that will be great, and we need to be looking forward to. Man is not alone in the universe.
All right. Thank you. That was really great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
I'm going to say, give your websites and where we can
All
find
right.
more
Okay.
information.
Well, my website. Actually, I've written 5 books. You can look in Amazon to get them. The new one is on Colonel Phil Corso, Conversations with Colonel Corso. And my website for the conference, which is very important. He's going to be there. He's going to be there and talk to George and Uri on stage, is www.starworksusa. It's all one, starworksusa.com. And my work in South America with the contactees and so forth is on Paola, I'm Italian, paolaharris.com. And do you have a website? You had a website.
I have Facebook.
Yeah, he's on Facebook.
And I had a website at one time, but I'm just one person, and when you get, they'll shut down your website when you get so many emails, and I try to answer all of my emails. Here recently, due to medical reasons, I haven't been able to do that. Even personal appearances.
What is
have been very few. I have my Clifford Stone.
Yes.
The public figure site on Facebook. Then I have my personal page on Facebook.
And your email, do you talk about that at all?
I have no email site.
No email.
No.
In other words, people want to write you.
Yeah, I used to have a Gmail site, and that lasted for about a week before it actually just crashed on me because there were
So many people. But if you have anything, I will refer them. My email is paolaharris@hotmail.com, and I will refer to Cliff.
And I never go ahead, like a lot of people, because when they start saying things that I should be angry and upset with, people say, why don't you go ahead and block that person from your website? I'll never do that, because that right there is them going ahead and I'm trying to control their thoughts.
Yeah,
If they think I'm the worst person ever, they have that right to think that. And I'll never block a person from coming up and saying, you know what, you're a sorry so-and-so, you're a liar, you're this, I'll never block a person from that. But the whole, even if I can't befriend them, right now I'm full as far as befriending goes on Facebook, but they can still get there. They can still leave a message.
Yeah, and they will see, and you can still see him. You can still see him in Laughlin. Sign up right now before the early bird ends on June 1st. So you can sign up at starworksusa.com. And you can come and physically talk to him in Laughlin. And it is November 10th through 12th of 2017 at the Aquarius Hotel in Laughlin, Nevada.
And I know that a lot of people who visit me on Facebook are going to be there. And I want the people to know right now that I'm approachable. It's not something that they have to worry about. If they approach me, there's going to be 100 or gazillion bodyguards that's going to block them off. I welcome people coming up to where I can talk to them. And like I say, I want the information to be shared. If I give you CDs, DVDs with documents on them, I want you to feel confident to go and make 100 or 1,000 copies to give to other people, because I want other people to have this information. Knowledge is power, and it's that knowledge that makes us free. Not having other people to go ahead and live within our lives telling us what to do and what we are to believe and what we are not to believe. An open mind and our own intelligence armed with knowledge. That knowledge is what goes ahead and sets us apart from, shall I say, other forms of life on this planet. And that's very key. And also, you know, I'm privileged, I think, to say that I live in a country that permits us to go ahead and disagree with even our elected officials. There's quite a few countries in the world today that you don't have that. But I can tell you right now, even the people in those countries where they try to control the thoughts of the people in those countries, those people are coming out of their shell. And they are saying, I want to know the truth. And you know, it's up to all of us to share the truth. And here again, I think that the documents are the most powerful truth that we have.
And we got to thank a portal to Ascension for having us on.